It's almost like you're walking around with a blister. You can walk. It's hurting a little bit, but it's not that it's going to stop you. And that's what I'd been for some time. So it was so interesting to finally understand what it was that wasn't matching. Life is too short to be in a job that you don't like, that is gently soul crushing. Like, what is this? This isn't a dress rehearsal. We only live one life. And are you going to do that in a place where you're so or slightly unhappy? No, like demand more from your life.
Anyone who needs to pitch their value, whether it be in a business setting, whether it be in a performance review, this is so valuable to move away from I'm being cocky by doing this and stepping into your confidence.
A lot of people have a hard time telling the world what they do and who they are. By the time she was done, I started sobbing. It was just like, I was just being myself and I felt like I could be heard. So this is what it means when you meet your insecurities. And mind you, no is a full sentence. That's taken a long time for me to really understand and accept.
All right, balancers. Today's episode is going to be a treat. I have a woman on who I've been excited to chat to. I think we overlap in not only our interests, but I think her trajectory, where she's come from, where she is now is something that I find quite inspiring, as well as what she's doing now. I think has a lot to offer, not only for the niche that you work in now, but just for the everyday person listening, how they can connect with their insecurities, find their confidence, find their voice in things they're doing. So I'm excited to get into it, but let me just introduce her first. She is known as a Chief Inspirational Officer, which is such a cool title, for businesses globally. She's an international award-winning economist, Forbes contributor, and she's the founder and CEO of the Middle East leading speaking bureau, MENA Speakers. My guest today is Saana Azzam. Saana, a warm welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, I'm really excited to chat to you. I really want to know about your transition from banking to running MENA Speakers. And the reason I'm so interested to know about it is I've been meeting so many people who have made this jump out of corporate into just something completely different. I think where your creativity has a little bit more room to breathe. So talk to me about that transition for you.
Nice. Yes, I was a high-flying businesswoman doing really well in the banking and financial services sector, and it paid handsomely. So just really excited about where my career was heading.
What was your actual role?
I was client facing.
Yep.
So I've gone from precious metals like gold, selling gold in essence.
Investments, right?
Yeah, exactly. To central banks where they refine their bullion just for their currencies and similar things, into trading. So different asset classes, equities, stocks, bonds, FX, etc. So I did that. And things were really fun. I was learning a lot. I enjoyed my colleagues. But there was still in the back of my mind something that was just a little bit off. I went, what is it? What is it? And so I went and took this course that I thought was a leadership course. Turns out that it's an NLP course.
That's a neurolinguistics program.
Exactly.
Right? Yep. Can you explain what that is just for people who haven't heard about it before?
Basically, it's the tools to be able to coach people to enhance their lives. It's a classic life coaching course. you know?
Yeah.
But the way it was promoted was leadership. So I didn't really read the fine print or the details. I went, oh, amazing, let's go. So I did that and somehow accidentally got my certification after this 10-day course. And I was like, this is amazing. But I was doing it for me.
Yep.
But in this journey, you have to start looking within and going, what are your values? What do you want from life? What do you want to do? And we were doing these zillion exercises. And as I was doing that, one question was, what are your values? List them quickly. How close are you to living your values, percentage-wise, at the current workplace you're in?
Good question.
Yep. So I looked at it and I went and started adding percentages. And I went, oh my gosh, okay. So I knew it was off. I just didn't know why. And I wasn't living my values at all. The place was fine and everything cosmetically looked great. My career was heading somewhere beautiful. But then I knew something was off. And it was almost like you're walking around with a blister. You can walk. It's hurting a little bit, but it's not that it's going to stop you. And that's what I'd been for some time. So it was so interesting to finally understand what it was that wasn't matching.
And what were those values that you found were really off or not present?
I'm a lot about like altruism, doing good by doing well, serving my community, helping others, but at the same time being able to help myself in that process. So that's such a core thing for who I am and my identity. And you're not exactly doing that in banking and financial sector.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, it's a bit off. So when I learned that, I couldn't unlearn it.
Yeah.
So I came back after this course and I went, something's off. And I look over at my manager and I'm like, hey, let's go and have a chat. He goes, what is that? I was like, can't do this anymore. Gotta go. And he went, well, can I offer you more money? Like, what can we do to keep you? We want to retain you. And I went, you really can't. All right, so I had to leave on the day because that's what happens in that sector. And then I went back to this list and I went, okay, now that I know this, how can I build a business based on this? And I started brainstorming and just maybe this, maybe that. And this is where the idea for MENA Speakers came up, like a speaker agency with educators that are there on the stage inspiring hundreds of people. And that's really about serving my community. So that's how things unfolded. And I haven't looked back since because I'm true to my values and true to who I am.
That's amazing. And I guess just being so grounded in knowing what wasn't working for you and how important that is just by doing that exercise was enough for you to make that decision. There'll be a lot of people listening who know what you mean when you say you've been walking around with a blister, right? They know that feeling in their current role. But to make such a drastic leap like that, A, may not be feasible for where they're at, and B, scares them a lot too.
Yeah.
So for people who maybe can't just pack it up on the spot, what advice do you have to them? Say they, for example, need to start thinking about what that next step is before they take the step. Maybe you can walk us through how you actually came to working out MENA Speakers or anything just practical you did at the time for people to feel more comfortable making that jump.
Yeah. So if you're stuck in a role where you have to be there because you have a family to provide for or bills or whatever it may be, then find something on the side that nourishes your soul. Whether that's a passion or side business or similar, because that's going to energize you and it's going to be able to sustain you in the workplace where you're at until eventually down the line you can look for another job or transition into your own business, something like that. But that act alone can balance out. This is depleting me a little bit, but this is energizing me so I can keep going.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because firstly, I'm the perfect example of that. So I just shared with you a little bit how, I don't hate my job as a corporate lawyer, but it doesn't light me up the way this does, doing podcasting, having businesses. And I only know that because I dabbled in it on the side. So I had a point of reference to be like, okay, I now have a clear comparison of how my energy is in doing both things. And you're right, just because I talk about on the show I have before about why hobbies are so important. And they're important because if you put all this pressure on your job to be this one thing that fulfills you across the board, it's a very unrealistic standard because it's very unlikely you're going to have one job or one career that's going to tick every single box of yours, your creativity, your passion, your interests, all these things, right? Unless you're running in your own business and you're making your own role, it's very difficult.
Absolutely.
So having these hobbies to leverage off really re-energizes you to do your actual job, which kind of over the years has helped me stay afloat because I've needed to do my career for financial means. So it's given me that balance until I've been able to work out what it is I actually want to do.
I'm with you. Now, I had a friend who was in a situation where he was gently unhappy with his workplace and everything was fine. It's all fine. And I kept hearing the stories. And at some point I went, oh my gosh, it's like you're almost in a narcissistic relationship. It's a soul crushing experience. It's so gently soul crushing. It's enough to be fine. But why? Why would you put yourself through that? I've changed my outlook on this. Yes, you can balance that with hobbies and other stuff. But life is too short to be in a job that you don't like, that is gently soul crushing. What is this? This isn't a dress rehearsal. We only live one life. And are you going to do that in a place where you're or slightly unhappy? No, like demand more from your life. And it's the same if you're in a relationship and you have a partner that's like slightly making you unhappy, demand more from life. So I would say find something else, find yourself, do something else. But to sit through that is so unhealthy. And it's this gentle chipping away of the soul that I think is more dangerous than a place that is so obviously toxic and you're leaving. But it's that little that's breaking you down that I think is more dangerous than anything else.
100%. I like that you've likened it to a relationship because when you think about it like that, you're like, well, I wouldn't tolerate that from somebody else. Then it makes you think, why the hell am I tolerating that from a job? And it's interesting to think if you're if you're not so obviously unhappy, we tend to not question or make change because we don't have enough of a, let's just say, fire up our ass to make that change, because it's okay. But it's okay to question things when they're okay, because like you said, it's your life. You live it once.
Yeah.
Why not do something that makes you happy?
And I think you're slightly gaslighting yourself. Now I'm throwing all the terms from the book.
This is the tough love somebody listening needs to hear.
It is, because you're going, oh, but the pay is good, but I'm miserable, or oh, I don't really feel good because I have a toxic manager, or my colleagues are slightly bullying me or not treating me so nicely. No, this is not okay. This is not healthy for you. So don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. It's like you're manipulating yourself into accepting something that you technically don't really want for your life.
100%. And if you are there, like you said, like starting to have that thing on the side, so you can, at least there's like light at the end of the tunnel when you do that. It's not like you're just accepting the situation for as it is. You're making those small steps on the side if you're not in a position to make that drastic shift. So yeah, I know there's someone listening that just needed to hear everything you just said. So tough love is it's something I find hard to give to myself. I'm a lot softer with things, but I honestly, sometimes you just need to hear it how it is.
But it's not just you. So we might segue into public speaking at some point here, but one of the exercises that I do in my master classes and sessions is that I let people present and look at themselves in a video format. 9 out of 10 people do not want to watch that video. And this is them just speaking. It's something that we do every day, and you don't want to watch yourself as you're doing that. I think it's so hard. It takes bravery and guts to take a hard look in the mirror, or even a look. No, it doesn't even need to be hard. Just look at yourself.
Quick glance.
Yeah, like what's going on? Do I feel good in my own body? Am I safe? Does this feel right? And then go, no. What am I going to do about that? No. And this is where friends and accountability partners are amazing, because they will tell you. They love you so much, they'll tell you as it is.
So you do share how public speaking is a way to meet your insecurities. And I think that, a lot of people look at public speaking and go, it's not for me. I never want to do it. I never want to be on stage. But from what you've just shared, and I know this from the first time I edited my own podcast, and I was like, oh my God, I can't listen to my own voice. And so many people have that experience. Like when I have them on the show, if it's like friends or family, and then we watch it together, they just like panic and shrivel up inside.
Yeah.
So talk to me about how somebody listening who's got no interest in doing public speaking, I'm doing that in quote unquote marks for everyone not watching video.
Because everyone does speak publicly.
Right. Okay. That's a whole nother segue.
Yeah.
But in terms of like how we traditionally look at public speaking, being on stage.
Yeah.
Talk to me about some more of the exercises you do and how that can actually help someone in daily life, not just to get up and practice for a TED Talk.
Oh, there's so many things I want to say, and I'm excited about this question. All right. So at the end of the day, we can all improve by reading a book or watching a YouTube or taking an online course when it comes to this space. But the reason people come to me is because I'm noticing what is said and not said. And then I'm helping you also look at yourself and explore who you are. One of the things that I tend to do is we start off with an elevator pitch. A lot of people have a hard time telling the world what they do and who they are. Just from a professional stance. And quite often it sounds like, my name is so-and-so, this is my title, and this is where I work at. This is often my best case scenario. And quite often it's not full name, it's not saying the title fully. And what I like to do is go, well, give me a bit more to work with here. Maybe brag a little bit so I know that you're an expert in your field. That question, it can take us hours to unpack. And so once we've constructed that and it does justice to the person's expertise in front of me, and now anybody that hears this elevator pitch knows who they are and what they can offer and do justice to their experience, then I record them and I ask them to, stand up, present, and now you're going to watch yourself. Oh, so much happens in this moment where I don't feel comfortable bragging about myself. You're not bragging, you're just telling us what you do. You're helping me. So if I need your services or your expertise, I know who to reach out to. Oh my God, I didn't know that I was all of this. Well, you're pretty awesome. This is pretty great. Yeah.
Why do we struggle with that? Like really like just accepting or being able to share with someone else the full extent of who we are. Like you said, it's not even bragging. It's just the reality of what we've achieved and who we are and what we can offer. Why do we struggle with that so much?
So imposter syndrome comes up a lot. You should be playing small. You shouldn't think that you're better than others.
In Australia, we call it tall poppy syndrome. So being the tallest poppy, you stand out in front of everyone else and no one wants to be that.
That's interesting. So that type of mentality is definitely a Swedish thing as well. You're not really allowed to show up fully. You shouldn't think that you're better than others. So you have all this type of conditioning that comes up, and then all of a sudden you're starting to play small. You're hiding who you are. And it's beautiful to watch people, professionals, finally go, whoa, really cool. That's who I am. Yeah. Oh, nice. I like it. Yeah, I like it too. And I know how you can help me. Fantastic. I think that's one example.
Yeah, I think just thinking about this, right? Not just, I mean, I know you teach it in the context of public speaking, but really anyone who needs to pitch their value, whether it be in a business setting, whether it be in a performance review, this is so valuable to move away from I'm being cocky by doing this and stepping into your confidence of like, no, I'm actually going to own who I am and what I've achieved. What's maybe one more that you find really effective that's an exercise you do with your speakers that helps them do that internal kind of check-in to express themselves to their full extent?
I'll give you an example of something that happened yesterday. I had a masterclass, and one of the people in this session had this theatrical approach, and it was almost a defense mechanism. Let me go up and pretend that I'm somebody else, and I'm this super happy person. And actually, it worked. It was fine. It's enjoyable to listen to. But I went, whoa, time out. Let's do this differently. Let's try something else, right? So this has worked her whole career. So this is why I'm saying it's fine, but let's try something else. And there's something else. I went, forget that everybody else is here in the room. Just talk to me and take a breath. Nobody's watching. Just tell me what you do. And she started answering. Okay. And how can you help me? And what is the expertise that you have? Where have you been before? And we had that one-on-one conversation. By the time she was done, she started sobbing. I went, what happened? She was just like, I was just being myself. And I felt like I could be heard. So this is what it means when you meet your insecurities and allow yourself and your own voice to be heard, your authentic self to be heard. And there is a transition through it. This is why we tend to be first a bit mechanical. I do the mechanical stuff in the beginning. This is how you present, and these are the structures. All right. And then we move into, well, why don't you make it your own now? Play with it. All right. So you said I should sound like this, but how about if I sound like this or that or whatever that might be? Yeah. So we start experimenting until that person lands in whatever is their authentic, body language or voice or vocal projection or linguistics, words that they'll use. But that does go through that process.
So interesting. What are your thoughts on, I know a lot of people talk about kind of not having an alter ego, but kind of like a character they step into, like when they go on stage.
Yeah.
So now that I'm hearing what you're saying, right, which really is just about bringing it back to your authentic self and finding a style that reflects that in an authentic way. How does that kind of merge with the idea of playing a character or having a persona to show up?
Okay. I love that. That's kind of like the Beyonce Sasha Fierce thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Like not an alter ego, but kind of like you need to step into this energy to be on stage. Right?
Absolutely. And over the years, I've been stuck 3 times. I've trained hundreds, but I got stuck 3 times. And this is when I went, this person is so attached to the identity that they have been given, their parents have given, society has given them, whatever that might be. I'm not moving forward. So I went, all right, give me an alter ego. Somebody that you think is cool. Who's your other person? The person who you are on your free time when you're with your best friends and you're just like in your element. All right, that person is Tony. Okay, and how is Tony? Cool, swagger, is funny, is charming, amazing. All right, so do you think we can bring Tony to the stage? Yeah, maybe we leave Anthony in the sea and Tony goes up and presents. Yeah, we can do that. All right, Tony, the stage is yours. That shift alone, it's still the same person. It's just letting go of this fixed idea that we think the world perceives us as. Breaking through that allows for so much change, but it doesn't happen often. It's now 3 so far. That's my case studies. And it's been really amazing to see that transition.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting because I think depending on what content you consume and what information you've taken in, sometimes you feel you need to step into something to show up, right? And whether that be as simple as to psych yourself up to go on a date or networking event or to prepare to go on stage. And I just wonder if that's a damaging approach versus taking a little bit more of an authentic, aligned approach in terms of who you are and who you want to show up as.
I'm with you.
I guess the question is like, if you want to be more confident, if you want to show up with a little bit more energy, what's the fine line between
performative, theatrical versus authentic?
Yeah.
I'm with you. Let's go back to the Anthony.
Yeah.
The difference between the two is that one is carrying shame and guilt, and the other one has given themselves permission to let go of that shame and guilt.
Let's unpack this a bit.
Sorry?
Let's unpack this a little bit. No, because I love how much of this, like, it's not just a conversation about public speaking and techniques. It's actually the inner work that's reflected outwards, because that's what public speaking is. It's a public projection of who you are, and whether you take that on a stage or in a interpersonal relationship perspective, doing that work has so much value in the way you show up in these settings. So, okay, well, you're coming from 2 different places. Talk to me about the 2 different. Like, how do we work out where we sit with that? Like, how do I know if? I mean, maybe that's the wrong question, because I guess you know the feelings.
Yeah, but you can
acid
test it yourself. And I think a nice way is, you'd be surprised how much you can see from yourself when you're putting on a mask and you're being a bit extra, or you're being a bit not really yourself. So if you just record it and you're watching it, and then you can also ask a best friend, a partner, or somebody that knows you really well, be like, what do you think about this? And we all have a built-in authenticity radar.
Okay.
So audiences will know, and this is so interesting, and this, I've been observing this for years in the masterclasses that I have. So I do an exercise where I ask the audience to give feedback on a Post-it. Stop, start, continue. What should you stop doing, start doing, continue doing? And then everyone starts typing the feedback. And these are individuals that that are not trainers in public speaking, that are not coaching. They haven't necessarily read anything about it. But our instinct and our gut around who's being authentic, who's lying, who's making something up versus who is just being the real self, we all have that built in innately. So it's so interesting to just collect the Post-its and start comparing the notes. Quite often we overlap on a lot of the comments.
So do you mean that, like, a lot of people in the room will have the same radar in terms of how that person's showing up? Which is interesting, right? Like, because if you're listening to this and you're currently on the dating scene, or you're even interviewing for a job, the importance of the way you show up in those settings is, it's not just about what you're saying, but it's the energy that sits behind it.
And absolutely, it's how, and this is the thing, I can't necessarily pinpoint it anymore right now. For me, and I've been doing this for years, right? So within a couple of minutes, I know if the person in front of me is in their truth, not, they have a mask on, not, and then I can hear kind of footnotes to what is being said. I try to stay at home a lot.
Protect the castle.
a little bit. So I can hear what's happening, and this is why at this stage it's become a very intuitive experience. But if you want to unpack that, you can see some body language, like some gestures that tell you somebody is being inauthentic, is lying, is thinking that they're superior to you. If they're self-soothing, their heart is beating. You will see some of these gestures, whether that's contempt. This one is always to watch out for. And this is research from, both John Gottman and Paul Ekman that I think are fantastic resources to read about this space for both relationships and body language. But also instinctively, if somebody's doing this all the time, something's off. They're trying to push down their heart rate. They're trying to self-soothe. So you start looking for clues. If I have to engage intellectually, I'll be doing that. At this stage, so intuitive. I have a really good sense of who's in front of me and what is going on, and if they're feeling deeply uncomfortable or not. And so my job is to go, oh, what's happening? Do you want to try this again? No, why don't we try this again this way? Okay. And then they see themselves and they go, oh, now I'm in my truth. This is something that's almost like a lifelong pursuit as well. Now, I have been classically trained around the world in various schools and houses in public speaking. But it went from quite a clinical, academic, robotic, this is what you should do. And then just anecdotally, just observing other speakers, this works for them, maybe I should try that. Observing myself, I'm constantly in this evaluation space of, am I in my truth? And sometimes I have to take a breath and be like, okay, what's in my heart? What is happening here? This doesn't feel right, or this does feel right. Let's do this.
We definitely discount the role of intuition. I think even women especially. I think we have a very strong intuitive kick that can come up at different moments in times that we might discount for logic or for being, making the logical decision, which, that's a whole nother separate conversation.
Oh, I have so much I want to say, but let's link this back to business. Mm-hmm. We were talking about it yesterday again in this masterclass where the corporate world has this really funny tendency. You will see these corporate speakers maybe it's in-house meetings or town halls or similar, and they go, we are so delighted to launch this new product. We have now doubled our sales. Unfortunately, we have to close down this organization. And it's this disassociated style of speaking. Well, if you're a normal human being, which all of us are, then you go, oh my God, I'm so excited that we're going to be launching this new product and our sales have doubled. This is incredible. That's how we would be talking if we're talking to our friends or we're being human. But it's been normalized to be disassociated when you're in a corporate presentation. And I see this everywhere. And I go, are you really excited? Really, what's going on? Yes, it's always eye-opening when I come with this comment. And then I go, yeah, actually, that's weird. It's super weird. We don't talk that way anywhere else. Why has this become so normalized in the corporate world? Why should we be less human? And I think it's just snuck in and become the way we do it.
Yeah, and now the problem is like everyone perpetuates that's just the way we do it. And that's not only in, the setting you've kind of shared, board meeting style, but even down to like interviews, team meetings, things like that. Take that with a grain of salt, because obviously it comes down to who's in the team, who's the team leader. Sure. People make a huge difference. But in general, speaking from my experience in corporate too, it's very clinical. May as well be a hospital sometimes. Like, as you know what I mean? Like, it can be quite,
no, absolutely.
Quite stock standard.
Because I bounce around from organization to organization around the world, not just here. But we cannot present that way because, we're in the corporate world and we're professionals. And I'm like, oh, really? I don't come from that background at all. And I haven't worked with corporates and all of these people for years.
Yeah.
I know where you're coming from, but resist the urge to conform to bad practices.
Yeah.
So now you have to become that trailblazer that says, you know what, we're not going to have this graph with so many charts and numbers. Anyway, the cognitive load is too high. I can't take in that amount of information. Like, resist the urge to do things that are silly, inefficient, not productive, not helpful for the people in the room. And I think speaking in a disconnected way is not a high impact way of communicating.
Yeah, 100%. If we circle back, so we've obviously been talking about how public speaking can really like build your connection to self, your understanding of self. It helps you do some inner work, right, that you may not have confronted otherwise. Now that you've done this journey yourself, you coach other people to do it. Now when you grow and change in your life, and I always talk about how, you can learn to deal with fear and self-doubt, but it doesn't mean it's never going to show up again, because the next time you push yourself outside of your comfort zone, you meet it again, because you're in a new dynamic, you're in a new environment. Yeah. So in terms of like your voice or your confidence evolving with the different things you push yourself in, how do you deal with, or I guess navigate those turning points when you're like pushing yourself again and you're feeling that discomfort? And I ask this because it almost, no matter how self-confident you are and sure in yourself, it can shake you a little bit when you're pushing yourself, and that doubt, and you can look at people you really admire and think they don't go through it, but they do. Everyone goes through it when they reach that new level. So I'm curious, with your training, what you teach, how do you practice that in your own evolutions?
Okay. It's a sequence of events. It's every time I say, no, thank you, I want to stay in. Every time I say, no, that wasn't so nice, can you please speak more gently towards me or a bit more respectful? or no, thank you, I don't want to take on this task, or could I please have, this is what I need. It's these small things that you do in your daily life that builds that muscle of feeling comfortable and speaking up. And that's taken me some time to connect with. But I always go back to, there are moments where I do feel shame or guilt or, those standard feelings of, somebody said this to me, it didn't make me feel good. I feel like I'm being manipulated, or I feel like I'm being guilt-tripped into doing something that I'm not comfortable with. What do? I might take a step back and go, whoa, wait, give me a minute. I'll go back, I'll unpack that communication and go, okay, this is what I want to respond that is true to me. I want to resist the urge to go, yes, let's do it. And that's definitely there. Like the people pleaser in me is definitely there, that wants to just get on and do everything.
Yeah.
So taking that time out, go back, and then drafting. And it's a cognitive exercise of thinking, how do I convey the message of no, thank you? And mind you, no is a full sentence.
Great point.
Yeah. And that's taken a long time for me to really understand and accept. But as I'm doing that in my daily life, it becomes so much easier for me to show up in a podcast, on stage, in a panel discussion with my friends and speak my truth fully. And my truth is my truth, and nobody can negotiate or debate me on that, because that's my lived experience. Don't really have the right to go after me over something that I've lived through. And that's becoming increasingly something that I am allowing for. And sometimes I go, whoa, that was bold. I said that? Okay, that happened. But that also allows for when I go up on stage and I am presenting, my point is not to be liked by everyone, because if that's the case, I'll sell ice cream. My point is to be thought-provoking and to show you perhaps your shadows, or to show you something that maybe society's talking about something, but what are we not talking about and what is not being addressed? And then it's my job to highlight that. And I see that as my role as a person on stage, as a leader.
I think that's a great call out, like looking at every day, how can you stick to those commitments you make to yourself? Or really what you shared is setting boundaries, because when you can ongoingly do that for yourself, then when you deal with those difficult moments in life, you have the strong foundation. It's like, if you're trying to build a house on a rocky foundation, or if that house represents you going for that crazy job interview or jumping on stage and you haven't proven to yourself that you got your own back, or that you're confident in who you are, which are every day saying no, setting those boundaries, that makes that so much easier. And so that's such an easy thing that everyone can do every day. It's like, commit to yourself. Lean into what doesn't feel right. Stop saying yes to things you want to say no to. And I always say, when you say yes to somebody else, you're saying no to yourself, which is the best reframe. I was a huge people pleaser. This was the one thing that hit home for me, where I was like, oh, if I'm saying yes to them, I'm saying no to me. That's silly. I would never expect someone else to say yes to me and no to themselves. That flipped everything on its head for me.
I love that.
But
well done, you, by the way.
No, well, I mean,
it's huge.
Again, it was a process.
Yeah.
And like you said, I get the urge all the time. But like you, creating that space and actually not responding straight away, which was, I'm like, always respond to my messages straight away.
Yeah.
Actually just waiting and thinking, letting myself feel do I want to do that? Do I not? Is that going to impact what I call my non-negotiables? Taking that moment of pause, super important.
Yeah, you're right. And there are two things I want to add that are becoming these like guiding principles for me in this space. One is, what would I say to my daughter if she was put in that position? And she's become this amazing teacher for all of these things. Like, would I advise her to move forward or to say no? That's one. And the other one is I start to trust my body more. If I feel the slightest, like my nervous system is regulated, even if it's just like the slightest bit, I'm feeling something and I go, ooh. So if it's not a full yes, then I have to go and assess what's going on here. Yeah. And they say the hardest no's are the ones closest to a yes. Yeah. It's almost there, but it's not fully there. And
it's like the blister in the foot. It's just something that's off. And it's like one of those things where it's hard to say no when nothing's like apparently wrong, or to walk away from something that's not broken. When you make those decisions because it's actually like, this is just more aligned for me, there's actually nothing wrong with this situation, they're the hardest ones to make, because there's nothing that's prompted you to up and go or to take action. It's you just deciding that there is something more aligned for you. So
and let me validate that. I just really want to take a moment, because I think this is so important. that's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough for you. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. I want to stay home. Stay home. I don't want to go out. Don't go out. I don't want to work there. Don't. Your feelings are valid. My feelings are valid. Everyone's feelings are valid. And that's a reason enough to do what honors your truth.
Yeah. And not feel like you said no's a full sentence. You don't need to justify. I find myself, even though I've got good boundaries now, I find myself needing to justify sometimes, like no, because X, Y, Z, and explaining myself when that's not necessary, because no is a complete sentence. Us talking about finding yourself, working on your insecurities, having those people around you can bounce ideas off, getting stronger and understanding who you are. When we talk about how this, I mean, it helps in every aspect of life. Let's not even undersell it. Anything you do, doing this kind of work is valuable. But I want to talk about something that I used to find difficult, and that is valuable for every single person. I don't care what you do, entrepreneur, careerist, whatever you do, it's valuable, and that's networking, which scares a lot of people. A lot of people think they don't have to do it. For example, lawyer, 9-to-5 job, you want to grow in that particular firm, you may not think networking is important, right? I see the value in it, because building connections is the greatest thing you can do. Life is all about connections. You never know what relationships will bring, what relationships will be fruitful for any reason, personal or professional. Yeah. But let's talk about the networking scene. Yeah. Obviously, there's professional events you can go to. You can ask someone out for a coffee, many different things. How do you approach networking yourself? Or what tips would you give people in terms of thinking about networking without making it too mechanical? At the end of the day, it's about, just connecting with people. But I think sometimes having a little bit of an approach or some things to think about, questions to ask or ways to approach people, how to ask them, it's useful.
Oh, absolutely. So there's a lot of research around this, and there's so much to unpack in the question. That's like, where do I go? So we've seen the research that shows that you're gonna, get a job quicker, you're gonna earn slightly more if you're coming from a referral, and your network is your net worth. I'm sure we've all heard this. So that's a given. But what is one of the best approaches when you're out there and you're networking? Maybe skip the autopilot questions. Hi, where are you from? Where do you live? What do you work with? And that's if you're trying to build a relationship. At the end of the day, we're trying to release a hormone called oxytocin. It's a relationship builder. And you don't do that by asking autopilot questions. It's not an amazing approach. It's fine, but there are more effective and impactful ways of building relationships. So skip that for a second, and you can go, what do you love about your job? What are your passion projects? What languages do you speak? I prefer that one over where are you from. What languages do you speak? And so many times I've been shocked by that answer. You're seeing a person that you think is only speaking Arabic, and he says, I speak Russian, English, and Arabic. Oh, Russian? Oh, interesting. But what you're doing is you're opening up for a more interesting conversation. You're releasing oxytocin. You're bonding better. And that's a great way to network, because now you're truly bonding, as opposed to handing out your business cards like confetti to everyone. It's fine, but perhaps you want to build deeper relationships so that you start building these true alliances and champions that will help you when you pick up the phone and ask for a favor.
Yeah, and it's not even about, obviously there's a role there for having different kind of conversations, but you also stand out to that person. Like every time I get someone on the show, I've had people on that have been on hundreds of podcasts, and the one thing that I always go for is this is something when they say it makes me so happy. They're like, oh, no one's ever asked me that before. Because I really want to try and think about ways I can connect with that person that's outside of, TV interviews they would have done. That's just stock standard that they talk about all the time. And so I think if you approach networking the same, like remove the aspect that it's even networking or professional. It's just like, what do you actually want to know about this person? Like, I think we complicate genuine connection. It's become, and maybe that comes from, my background's corporate, yours is too. Maybe it comes from that clinical aspect of corporate that we were talking about, that way that things are, that people are very they bring that energy to interactions as well. I've done interviewing for our other businesses. And when I'm interviewing someone, it's honestly like they've made it to an interview because they have the experience on paper. But what gets them through the next round is, can I connect with you? I'm going to work with you every single day. Do we have some synergy? Are you a good fit for the team, for the family? People you're going to be working with? So I think people just discount that so much in these kinds of interactions, especially when it comes to work. It's almost like, you know, when you put a camera in front of you, people like get all a bit uptight.
Yeah.
It's like professional puts that same lens.
Yeah. Of course. And there's so much to be said about that. You know, there are more hacks and things that you can do to keep building that relationship. One of them is the rule of reciprocity. When you give, there's a cognitive dissonance. So people are gonna be more inclined to invest in you. So if I'm giving you something, you want to reciprocate. Let's go with that. So there's this happening.
Exchange.
Yeah, we're built like that. And like the Hare Krishna model was built on that. They would give a rose at the airport and then people would donate as they're leaving. That was one of the reasons for their success. But we humans are built like that. We want to reciprocate kindness. And then with the cognitive dissonance, there's a story from Benjamin Franklin. It's called the Franklin effect. Now, he was pursuing a political career and he was against this huge opponent who was very wealthy, moneyed, powerful. And he went, oh, Lord, what am I going to do? How am I going to go up against this person? He's obviously way mightier than I am. But then he went and asked for a book. He's like, I heard you had this book collection. Can you lend it to me? This person reluctantly went, okay, fine. You know, did that. And then he went and just kind of read it, sent it back with a note, with a thank you note. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Hope you're well. See you later. And then afterwards, they built this fantastic relationship. Because there was an investment in the relationship, then there is an inclination to invest more in that relationship. So what do we do with that information? I would say maybe don't be afraid to ask for favors. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Hey, what do you think? What is your opinion on this? And then there's going to be this investment that we want to continue investing in that relationships. And that's how you build deeper relationships, amongst other things.
Yeah, 100%. And I always say, we're so scared of asking sometimes. If you ask and you get a no, you're in no different position to where you are. So you really only got two options. You're either going to be better off or in the same position. You may as well ask the question.
Yeah. And the only disclaimer is be elegant, be tactful. Don't go, hey.
Be yourself.
Yeah, but like, don't go, hey, can you introduce me to new clients?
Right.
With somebody that you just met. It's tacky.
Yeah.
So it's just like managing that fine line of being elegant and appropriate and having a situational awareness of, I'm not going to be a user, a taker, but I'm going to allow myself to speak up when I need perhaps some support or help.
Yeah. Comes down to intention at the end of the day. Like, what's your intention in connecting with people? And if you just want to use them to advance your position, that's never a good way that's never going to build meaningful connection. And like you said, we all have an inbuilt authenticity radar. People aren't stupid. So I think just be genuine in your approach. I always say, like, you never know, like you might connect with someone, go out of your way, have a coffee with them, and that person may not be the person that helps you do something, but they might know someone who knows someone who gives you a life-changing opportunity. For sure. So you have to be very open and genuine in every interaction. And I think knowing yourself and like what we've spoken about today, knowing who you are, being aware of how you show up and really leaning into your insecurities so you can fully embrace your authenticity is key to public speaking, professional life, personal life, and just living yourself, you know?
Yeah. Adam Grant's research absolutely supports what you just said. He was researching whether the takers, the givers, or the matchers were better relationship builders. I might want to ask you this one. So do you think those that are taking and when they're trying to build relationships, or those that are matching, or those that are giving, who do you think are the best relationship builders, more successful in their careers and life, etc.?
The givers?
Yeah, but there's a plot twist. So that's exactly what it is. You're like, you got it. You got it. It is the givers, but then you have the over givers that deplete themselves. Right. So it's like the appropriate givers. They're amazing.
Not the people pleasers.
That's what it is.
It's again, I think that's like a genuine giving, not giving because you want to tick a box or look a certain way or because you feel you have to. It's coming from a guilt place. But honestly, I think we could chat for hours if we have the time today. I've learned a lot from chatting with you. I'm sure this is not going to be the last time we have a conversation. I'm very grateful for your time. And if people listening want to connect with you, follow along your journey, check out Mina Speakers. Where's the best place they can go? And I'll pop some links in the show notes.
So socials, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook.
Beautiful.
At Saana Azzam, at Mina Speakers. That's the best way. And we're really responsive.
Okay, amazing. Well, I'll put links to everything in the show notes. Thank you so much for your time. And I really appreciate your energy and your thoughts that you've shared today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you.